Hello friends, I am Dr. Pushpa Kumari, Assistant Professor, Department of Education, Shyama Prasad Mukherjee College for Women, University of Delhi. Today in this lecture I am going to discuss a very important national education policy, that is 1968. It is the very first education policy in India. This unit 7 is covered under the BES 122 course of B.Ed program, that is Contemporary India and Education. In this we have already discussed in the previous video about the important commission, the Education Commission 1964 to 66, that is also known as the Kothari Commission. We discussed on important recommendations given by the Education Commission which laid the path for a national education policy 1968. The learning outcomes of this lecture is to understand the developments of school education from 1964 to 1985, to discuss the need and major recommendations of the National Education Policy 1968, to study the contribution of National Education Policy 1968 and its impact on education for all. The content is first a general introduction about the National Policy on Education, its important objectives, its important recommendations, the merits and the limitations of NEP 1968 will be discussed. Now, the National Policy on Education 1968, it was based on the recommendations of the Education Commission of 1964-66, that is popularly named as the Kothari Commission. The Commission recommended that the Government of India should issue a national policy on education which provides guidance to the state governments and also the local authorities for preparing educational plans and implementing those plans. The policy, it covers elementary education to higher education in both rural and urban India. There was urgent need to solve the problems of access, quality, quantity, utility and financial outlay accumulated over the years, which were massive in proportions. So here we can see that the policy, the National Policy on Education 1968, it covers education from elementary level to school level to higher education, and in both rural and urban area, and it points out on different problems of accessibility, quality, quantity, utility and much more. The National Policy on Education 1968, it called for a radical restructuring and proposed equal opportunities in order to achieve national integration and greater cultural and economic development. This means that the NEP 1968 focused on restructuring of education system to achieve more of national integration and cultural and economic development. The policy had called for a national school system, means a national school system, a common school system common to the nation, which means that all students, irrespective of caste, creed, sex, religion, origin, would have access to education of a comparable quality up to a certain given level. The policy gave much attention to science and technology, the cultivation of moral values and a closer relation between education and the life of people. See, we have already discussed in Kothari Commission recommendations that they emphasized on education of science and technology to make education more modern and to increase the utility of the education, to the cultivating the moral values, and also the education should be related to the life of people. Means the people can relate the subjects of education to their own life, and they can apply the knowledge of their education to their real lives. Now, the important objectives of NEP 1968: to equalize educational opportunities across the country, creating an education system that can provide unrestricted access to education. That means it can provide unrestricted access to education to all people of the country, irrespective of any discrimination on the basis of sex, religion, caste, or anything. Development of values for national integration. Need to improve educational facilities for handicapped children. Means children with special needs should get education as par to the other children. To increase the facilities for secondary education. To improve the facilities in fields like agriculture, trade, medicine, arts, craft, commerce, home management. Correspondence and part-time courses to be developed for higher education. Means special emphasis was given on online and part-time courses in higher education. To promote functional literacy, to accelerate the pace of adult literacy. Emphasize the training of the youth for improved self-employment opportunities, and highlighted the need to uplift the conditions of teachers and promoted their academic freedom. So most of the objectives we see here in National Policy in Education 1968 is based on recommendations of the Education Commission, Kothari Commission 1964 to 66. Now, recommendations of NPE 1968. First was free and compulsory education. The policy, it emphasized that strenuous efforts should be made for an early fulfillment of Article 45 of the Constitution, seeking to provide free and compulsory education for all children up to the age of 14. Earlier also we see that the earlier commission, the Kothari Commission, emphasized on providing free and compulsory education for all children at all stages of education in the age group of 6 to 14 years. So this recommendation was also included in our first National Policy on Education 1968. Status, emoluments and education of teachers. The policy recommended that teachers should get an honorable position in the society. Their emoluments and other service conditions should be adequate and satisfactory, considering their qualifications and responsibilities. The academic freedom of teachers to pursue and publish independent studies and researches, and to speak and write about significant national and international issues should be protected. So here we can see that special emphasis on improving the status of teachers has been given. A special emphasis was given on giving autonomy to teachers. A special emphasis was also given to do research in their field and to speak and write about those issues. Development of languages. So this is a very important recommendation of NEP 1968. Emphasis was laid on developing regional languages apart from Hindi, Sanskrit and international languages. We see that in India we have so many regional languages. So emphasis was laid on developing regional languages apart from Hindi, Sanskrit and other international languages, where English was one of the most important international language. It also laid down the 3-language formula at school stage. The directive was that the state governments should adopt and vigorously implement 3-language formula that include the study of modern Indian language, preferably one of the southern languages, apart from Hindi and English in Hindi speaking states. Means in Hindi speaking states we should include Hindi and English and one more modern Indian language, preferably a South Indian language. And for non-Hindi speaking states, Hindi along with regional language and English should be introduced. So this was majorly the focus of 3-language formula at school stage. See, here we can see that in development of languages, special emphasis was given on regional languages, Sanskrit, Hindi, international languages, and this gave to 3-language formula. Equal educational opportunity. Regional imbalance in the provision of educational facilities should be corrected, and good educational facilities should be provided in rural and other backward areas. Common school system. When we are talking of equal educational opportunity, common school system should be adopted in order to promote social cohesion and national integration. Actually, common school system was a system wherein all the children could come to a common school, and there has been no discrimination on the basis of caste, religion, region, or language or sex. Education of girls should be given due emphasis. Here we can see that when we are talking of equal educational opportunities, girls were lacking very behind. So the special emphasis was given on education of girls, not only on grounds of social justice, but also to accelerate the social transformation. Efforts are needed to develop education among the backward classes and especially among the tribal people. Backward classes, they can be economically, socially backward. So overall we can see that for providing equal opportunity to all, special emphasis was given on girls and on children belonging to backward classes, socially or economically backward classes or disadvantaged classes, especially the tribal people or children with special needs. Education for the physically and mentally handicapped children should be expanded, and attempts should be made to develop integrated programs enabling the handicapped children to study in a regular schools. Earlier, the handicapped children were put into special schools, but then this policy on education 1968, it recommended on integrating programs, that is bringing those children to, including those children to mainstream education. So this was a positive effort on part of the national policy to bring those children into the same school as those of the regular children. Identification of talent. The policy directed that in order to cultivate excellence, it is necessary that talent in diverse field should be identified at an early age, and every opportunity should be given for its full development. It was proposed that talented children should be identified not only at primary level, they should be identified at secondary level and higher secondary level, and they should be given admissions to school directly. Work experience and national service. It was recommended that the school and the community should be brought closer. Suitable programs of mutual service and support, work experience and national service, including participation in meaningful and challenging programs of community service and national reconstruction, should accordingly become an integral part of education. Emphasis should be given on self-help, character formation, and in developing a sense of social commitment in these programs. Science education and research. The policy emphasized that in order to accelerate the growth of national economy, science education and research should be given high priority, and for that science and mathematics should be an integral part of general education till the end of the school stage. Similar recommendation was also proposed by the Kothari Commission to increase the utility or to make the education modern. Special emphasis should be given on science education and research. So their recommendation was accepted by NAP 1968 also. Examination reform. The policy laid emphasis on reform in the examination system. It was recommended that the major goals of examination reform should be twofold. First is to improve the reliability and validity of examinations and to make evaluation a continuous process. Means in traditional examination systems, we have examination, a term and examination of or a half yearly examination that is mostly based on rote memorization method. That is mostly marks oriented. But here the national policy, they laid emphasis on examination reform. They said that the evaluation should be a continuous process. It should go out throughout the year. It should move out throughout the year and also in different forms. It should not be just a paper pen form. About the secondary education. See, educational opportunity at the secondary level is a major instrument for social change and transformation. Facilities for secondary education should be extended where the facilities have not reached yet. There is a need of provision and facilities for secondary and vocational education for developing economy and generating real employment opportunities. Such facilities should be diversified to cover a large number of fields such as agriculture, industry, trade, commerce, medicine, public health, home management, art and craft, secretarial training, etc. So here we can see that the policy emphasized on introducing various vocational courses at secondary level and in various different fields like industry, agriculture, trade and commerce, medicine, public health, home management, etc. Now, a special emphasis was also on part-time education and correspondence courses. The policy recommended that part-time education and correspondence courses should be developed on a large scale and at university stage. Such facilities should also be developed for secondary school students. Education through part-time and correspondence courses should be given the same status as full-time education. And if it would be given the same status as full-time education, more and more people would go for a part-time or correspondence course. About the education structure, the policy recommended a broadly uniform educational structure in all parts of the country. The ultimate objective was to adopt the 10+2+3 pattern, that is 10 years of school education up to completion of secondary stage, the higher secondary stage of 2 years being located in schools and 3 years of degree courses in the colleges. 10 years of school, secondary school, 2 years of higher secondary stage and 3 years of degree course in college, 10+2+3 pattern. Now, since now we discussed on the major recommendations of NPE 1968, it emphasized on education and educating people of India, because we know that education is a very important tool, a very powerful tool for national development. So many of our leaders, they have emphasized on restructuring of education system and giving education a very important place, and they have felt the need that the nation could progress only if people of India are educated. When Gandhiji gave his a proposal, vision of basic education, the Bunyadi Talim, there also he emphasized on educating people, on an overall development of the individual, not only the physical and moral development, but also relating it to the life of the people, relating education to the life of the people, skilling people. Now we are moving on to discussing about the merits of NPE 1968, merits of National Policy on Education 1968. Learning without pressure. This is a very important thing. Learning without pressure, studying without pressure. Teachers must strive to make learning a joyful experience and not stick to textbooks as a basis for examination. They should reduce the stress of learner, and therefore it suggests significant changes to be made in the pattern of the syllabus. We have to make the learning a joyful experience for the learner. Self-reliance. Learners must be encouraged to develop a sense of self-reliance and individual dignity. This is important for forming social relations. They should also be motivated to develop a sense of unity and promote non-violence across society. So self-reliance is also very important. Child-centered approach, student-centered approach. It encourages the promotion of universal enrollment and retention up to the age of 14 years by teaching with a child-centered approach to learning. And also they have emphasized on providing free and compulsory education to children up to age of 14 years. Feeling of unity. Teachers must try to instill the feeling of unity, democracy and oneness among learners. That is very important for a country like India, where we see so much of diversity. So this is very important that through our curriculum, through our subjects, through educating people, we instill the feeling of unity, democracy and oneness among the learners. Equality to all learners. In the social context, the curriculum published recently ensures that all schools are provided with and follow a standard framework irrespective of sex, religion, creed and caste. Now, some of the demerits or the limitations of NEP 1968. Ignorance by parents. See, despite the government's effort to offer free and compulsory education, many people living in remote area or tribal area still ignore sending their children to schools because they felt that education was not much of importance in their life. Lack of coordination. There is a lack of coordination between the local community and the educational institutions, which leads to issues in universalizing elementary education. Means people at local community, they are not aware of the educational facilities available in their community or the importance of education present in their community. Lack of funds. There is an inadequacy of funds which leads to a lack of learning resources and materials. So poverty. Even though education may be free, there are still some expenses parents have to incur, and those belonging to a poor social economic class may therefore refrain from sending their children to school. So poverty was a very important factor for not sending the children to schools. Lack of resources. Even with the government's provision of learning resources, it continues to be inadequate for quality education. See, the quality education which we are talking of as proposed in national policy, we didn't have adequate resources for quality education, for such quality education. An attitude of indifference. There is an air of indifference attitude by the higher authorities which leads to a lack of effort in the universalization of elementary education. Lack of motivation. Those who belong to a poor socio-economic background may not consider education to be important. They motivate their children to work instead of becoming educated. So for them, working, earning their bread and butter was more important than being educated, because for them education was just giving exams, getting marks, going on to the next class. Now here are a few questions for practice on New Policy on Education 1968. So hope this session was useful for you. So keep learning and enjoy the video. Thank you.